Can you guys hear me okay? Please chat if you can hear me. Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you for joining some announcements. This will be available after this live stream on my YouTube channel, this is on right now. I can't. If you are not able to watch this live, I will be able to answer your questions about maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I put this out. Maybe longer, we'll see. But I will totally try and get to your questions. Sorry if there's lag because I am sharing my screen on a different tab, and so I have to switch it and not see you guys. So this presentation is about how can you tell if a zoo is a good zoo. So please comment in the chat, what do you think when you hear the word zoo or aquarium? This presentation will mainly be around zoo related things, but aquariums pretty much have the same reasons, but just different types of animals and behave and things like that. And there also will be a lot of like these kinds of questions where I have you comment in the chat because I'm curious what you guys think before I explain what I think of these certain topics that I will be talking about. So John Myers thinks zoos that animals that people can look at. Yes, that is very true. All right, I'm going to go on, but I will show you your answers later. Would you say are zoos good or bad? You can just put they're good or they're bad. You don't have to put your reason. I'm not interested. I mean, I do care about your reasons, but I'm curious. I'm going to ask you before. I'm going to ask you after if you've changed your mind. So yes, zoos are for information about where the animals are from and their habitats and things like that. Especially yes. Depends on if they treat the animals well. Yes, that is one of my reasons that I will be sharing. Okay. All right, last one for a little bit. What is zoo accreditation? Because it's sort. I mean, I guess it would say it's sort of like how schools are accredited, but it's for a zoo. So what do you think it means, and what does accreditation do for the zoo? Okay, I'll explain this later, but all of these things doesn't really matter I mean, they all do matter, but they're not the only things that will affect if a zoo is good or bad. Like they could possibly not be accredited and be a good zoo. They could not have good zookeepers, and they still could be a good zoo for other reasons. But these are, if it doesn't have at least one of these reasons, then it's probably not that good. So they meet certain standards, yes. So accreditation by AZA, which is Accreditation for Zoos and Aquariums, or any other reliable accreditation organization. So I do have to say credits to the AZA page. I I'm sorry, but I literally copied and pasted this because um, I don't want to like make it. I know I should make it into my own words, but mainly just coming from the page, it means it's true rather than me trying to make up whatever. So, the Association for Zoos and Aquariums is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the advancement of zoos and aquariums in the areas of conservation, education, science, and recreation. ACA represents more than 240 facilities in the United States and overseas, which collectively draw more than 200 million visitors every year. AZA accredited zoos and aquariums meet the highest standards in animal care and welfare and provide a fun, safe, and educational family experience. In addition, they dis- dedicate millions of dollars annually to support scientific research, conservation, and education programs, and that is directly from from the AZA. And I will be talking more about the AZA in a later presentation, and like the process. I'll have to switch it up about like the process of how zoos are accredited. Again, this is exactly from the page, so you know I'm not making this up. Um, so AC accreditation. This is what as you saw before in the previous slide. This is one of the biggest accreditation. If I don't know if I doubt it's the only one, but I think it might be. But public, for instance, these are some like things that, if a zoo is accredited, the public can trust. It provides the public with essential connections to the natural world. It develops a public confidence by means that an institution meets or exceeds certain current professional standards. It provides publicly recognized badge. Sorry, signifying excellence and commitment to such things as animal management and welfare, safety, conservation, education. I'm sorry for those words. Um, and distinguishes AZ accredited zoos and aquariums from roadside zoos or not for profit zoos. Benefits, but these are the benefits to accredited zoos. And again, this is exactly copied, so you know I'm not um, like paraphrasing it or taking it, thinking it's my own. Um, like trying to tell you that zoos are good, but so um, benefits are for the zoo are it's a membership of the AZA. It increases eligibility for funding and grants from certain foundations, corporations, or other sources. Um, it cuts the red tape, promotes professionally recognition from the top zoological parks and aquariums in the United States. It provides impartial evaluation on a periodic basis by professional experts. Promotes excellence within the institution by causing an institution to continuously evaluate itself, provides staff and valuable opportunity to learn from other institutions, fosters staff and community pride, and is significantly provides the ability to attract and retain a high quality professional staff. So now I want you to comment down below your answers to these questions as what makes a zookeeper good? What is a zookeeper? And what should zookeepers do? And if you have any other comments or anything about what you think a zookeeper should do or is, please comment now and then we'll share them. I will take your questions at the end. Um, I will also share all of your comments. So Karen Myers thinks she says, I think a good zookeeper is one who is knowledgeable about the animals, cares for the animals and their well being, and is also a teacher who can share that information with the public. 100% true. I agree with that, and that was one of my reasons I want to be a zookeeper. Is um, I want to take care of the animals. I want to learn about them. Probably I've asked so many zookeepers, and they say their favorite thing is just talking with people and teaching them about animals, but also working with the animals in their enclosure. But it's mainly that social contact um, with teaching those, with teaching about animals. Ditto. So, zookeeper. So zookeepers have what makes a good zookeeper. Well, what makes good zoo in general is the zookeepers are pretty much the zookeepers because they're running the whole place. They're taking care of the animals, feeding them, teaching people about them, maintenance, like health. They're taking care of everything at the zoo. So, some features about zookeepers that would probably make a good zoo is they have good behavior from the zookeepers to the animals. If you haven't watched the movie called The Zookeeper, I would recommend watching it. It's very good. But there's a zookeeper that uses pepper spray on the gorilla, and that is not good behavior towards zookeepers and to the animals. But there, sadly, I think there are some zookeepers that will do that. But once people find out they did that, they're probably gone. Good training and interactions with the animals. I mean, with like good interactions, I mean, like, do the animals trust them? As another example below is trust from animals to the zookeepers. Trust is a very important thing because if the animal doesn't trust the zookeeper or the zookeeper doesn't trust their instinct of how to help the animal and how to train the animal, then the animal could potentially get hurt, and I wouldn't. I mean, it could possibly die. I don't know. Um, Zookeepers know what they're doing, as Karen said before. They do. Um, they're knowledgeable about the animals. If you're not knowledgeable about the animals and you don't know their health conditions, you don't know how they should be acting if they're sick. So 100% you have to know about the animals that you're working with. Zookeepers are explaining things to visitors about animals, as you guys said before. So now I want you to comment below what makes a habitat good for an animal. Like, what are some key features of a habitat that should be there in an animal for an animal? What do animals need in their habitats? Why does a good habitat matter? And some other things that you're um, thinking about. So this is a previous one. Zookeepers need to constantly learn more about animals. Just a degree is not enough. Yes, I know loads of zookeepers that I've talked to. I talked to a lot of zookeepers, not mainly for animal questions, obviously, because um, but now that I'm in high school, I feel like I should be asking those questions of like, what do you do? What's your favorite part? So I can see if I even want to be a zookeeper or just go to the zoo and have a love for animals and do something else. But definitely a degree is not enough. I've always talked, like explained, zookeepers are always learning. People are always learning. It's never, oh, after college I'm done learning and I just work for money. No, it's always you're working. Yes, you're working for money, but you're also working for that job because you enjoy it. You want to work in it. You want to learn more. So yes. All right, so I'm gonna go on now, and I will show your comments after I'm done with this part. So a habitat for the animals. So I asked you, what are some key features? What do animals need in their habitat, and why does a good habitat matter? So these are just some of the features that animals should have, and that um, animals need in their habitat. Animals need a lot of space. Most of the animals, I mean, there are very small animals to very big animals. Depends on the size. Yes, it depends on the size for the enclosure, but what makes a good zoo is it has enough space that it can act like it's natural, like it's in the wilds. It's like in its natural habitat. It can show its behaviors that it would in the wild. So space is a huge thing, and they're also not enclosed into one small area, so they can yes, basically act like they're in the wild. Um, Animal habitat for the animals are very good for enrichment, and I will be doing for sure a presentation on enrichment. I don't know if it's going to be the next one or the following one, but it will be either next presentation or in two presentations. Um, but enrichment is very important because that's how enrichment is how the animals learn. So there's different ways, like sometimes, like probably the most well-known way to kids like me um, is pretty much every year at zoo camp we make like these popsicles for the bears, and then the zookeepers put it out onto their habitat or their enclosure, which is pretty much the same thing as a habitat. Um, but that is a form of enrichment because it gets them thinking like it would in a natural habitat. So pretty much enrichment is just trying to get them to think and show their behaviors and learn like it would in the wild. Flying things like toys, loads of zoos that I've been to and have researched use like balls or tire swings for monkeys, balls mainly for like sometimes smaller animals, especially big tigers. They love to go, or lions. They love to go in the water with them splash around. Um, Habitat is like its wild habitat or close to it. So for example, let's just say a meerkat, for instance. They live in a desert. They have loads of termite hills around them. So I would say a pretty close. If probably it's never going to be exact, but a pretty close good habitat for a meerkat would be a termite mound. So they can for instance, like enrichment, they could put maybe live termites in there, so they can practice like getting them out and eating them, or having enough space for meerkats so they can dig holes because they are huge diggers. That's how they survive. That's their shelter. Or for let's just say the bongo, they love trees. You give them lots of trees and to hide behind or to eat. But there's loads of examples for what I have. It really depends on the animal. And a good habitat for the animal tries to get the animal to interact with each other and also show its natural behavior, as I explained before. So now I'm going to be showing you some images of um, enclosures, and I want you to tell me if you think it's a good enclosure or a bad enclosure. So these are real images from zoos that I found on Google. But would you say that this is a good enclosure or a bad enclosure for elephants? So here's something. Habitat is more than just a place for the animals to be happy and well in a zoo. It shows people how and where animals would normally live. And that's exactly what I was explaining as before, with how the habitat should be, or it will never be exactly like I said, but it should be pretty close to its normal habitat because um, because of that reason, as it should show people where it would normally live and how it would normally act. It's just in a different place and environment than it would be used to. Um, yeah, they should. They need some sort of door for the zookeepers to get into. Okay, Colin. That it's not a savannah. Okay. Um, of course, in providing a natural habitat, zookeeper would have to be careful about bringing in endangered species. Yes, um, I will be talking about that more later. Um, Not endangered species; it's an invasive. Okay, so the column is not what I'm asking for. This is from the criteria that I have. This would definitely be a good zoo enclosure for elephants. It has enough space, although it's not a savanna. Not all elephants live in savanna. African elephants. Um, but this would 100% easily be a good enclosure. It has watering hole for them to swim in and drink in. It has a huge like trees for them to practice like their natural behavior of eating out of trees. They have, I think, that's sand in the back. They have huge grass areas, although it's not very close to a savanna. Um, is like it's not no, it's not a savanna. It's not, but it's supposed to mimic your natural habitat, and I would say that it was definitely 100% very close to a an environment. Would this be a good or a bad enclosure for a river otter? Well, I know you can't see like the whole thing, but it pretty much gives you enough. The picture gives you enough that you can tell if it's good or bad. Yes, the zoo might not be in the same climate zone as a natural habitat or in the, or of the natural habitat of the animal. That's why animals, you will see lots of animals inside some of the time, or or if not all of the time, because inside they can control the temperature. They can, um, like, for instance, I'll give an example at John Ball Zoo, Michigan, where I go every summer. Um, like the lion, I think they said that the rock for the lion is heated for when it's cold outside. They can go outside and be warm. Also, for lots of the snakes, their chimpanzees have a rock of heated rock. Lots of them, lots of zoos will have like heated things for animals. They'll have the they will keep them in a climate that they're comfortable in and will be able to survive. And most of them will. Most zoos, if they're good and they're big zoos, they will have um, like an indoor space. For like example, of the chimpanzees at Jumbo Zoo in Michigan, they have an indoor space for the chimpanzees with like ropes and hammocks and all of that stuff, and they also have a huge outdoor space. Um, but now that it's getting cold in the United States, a lot of and so now the zoos in certain areas because of the climate, and it's very well known to snow in Michigan and New York, um, and some other more probably more eastern side, I would guess, of the state. Um, they're shortening their hours to the weekends so they can. And one of the reasons I think that is because to like to Friday and Saturday usually for your or Saturday Sunday, sorry for your the United States weekends, because people are out of school and they don't want the animals to get sick with hypothermia or just the cold in general. So their zoos are that I've known are really good at doing that. Um, So I would say, just looking at this photo, I would say this is probably going to be a very good habitat because obviously river otters live in rivers and water, and so that it has a small waterfall for them. Rocks that has some greenery, like it would be by a riverbank. It has a bank uh, of rocks that has some dirt where they can be on. So I would say this is a very close one. Again, this is example of a very good habitat because it has those trees that these gorillas. I want to say this is a Westwood gorilla or something. I think most zoos usually have those. It has like rocks for them to climb on. It has a nice outdoor space. It has trees for them to climb, but most of the trees that have monkeys, like the chimpanzees or gorillas, they will have like wires. So it's harder for them to climb. Some zoos, I think, will use electric just to say, oh, if you touch this, like just to teach them not to touch it anymore because they know something bad is going to happen. And I will be talking about behavior kind of things with that. Um, okay, would this be a good or a bad zoo? And just saying, I see your guys' questions, and I will be answering them after. And I'll try to stop talking about these things, but it's important to me, so I probably won't. So, this is probably a very okay. Yes, it's a bad zoo. It's a very bad. Well, I wouldn't say it's a bad zoo, but it's a bad enclosure. Um, it's a hippo. It needs lots of space to go on land. It has lots. I mean, as you can see, it's gated off. It, all it has is water and maybe like this small patch of land. I don't know what it would look like, but hippos are mainly water animals. They should have enough more space in that. And it should be. I don't know how deep it is, but they should be a lot. It should be a lot deeper, probably than it is, because hippos love going underwater and submerging. They can hold their breath for. Don't quote me on this. I think at least maybe 10, 15 minutes. Um, this is a bad enclosure again because it doesn't. It's just like that. I mean, it could be an indoor enclosure where it just sleeps. I don't know. Um, but if it, but we'll just say if this were a like a enclosure where it's 100% of the time or overwhelmingly most of the time where people will see it, it's a very bad enclosure. Although you can see the background, lots of zoos will paint really good backgrounds, especially for like snakes and things. But I would say this is a bad enclosure if it were over 95% of the time in it because it doesn't have that space to run. All it has is that rock wall. Um, but I would be surprised if this were its main enclosure. But if it is, it would be very sucky. Um, so there's always reasons why zoos exist. They're not gonna. They're fine. There's some reasons why zoos will exist just because they want animals with them in them for people to see. But most zoos in the U.S. and around the world, in like Europe, some parts of Asia have really good zoos, especially in the UAE. There's one really close by. Um, but what are some things you think? Um, oh, sorry. What are some reasons why you think zoos are why we have zoos in the first place, and what is this zoo? You don't have to answer what is the zoo supposed to be do. What is the zoo supposed to do because that was answered before. Um, um, I'm gonna go back to the some of your answers because they fit. Um, yes, the one of the main reasons is to help species population, not just invasive species or endangered species, but like vulnerable, or on the like very close to like on the endangered. There's a spectrum that the IUCN has, and I will 100% sure be doing a presentation on that. I have loads of presentation ideas. Is a nature preserve a zoo? I don't know. I mean, I think a zoo. The definition of a zoo would probably be like the size. A nature preserve probably would just be called a nature preserve. Um, like for instance, there's a um, nature reserve in New York called Alley Pond. It's very close in Queens, and I would consider that a nature reserve because it's not big enough to be a zoo because it's just like a small building for education reasons. But I think um, nature reserve, I would my answer would be, but don't quote me on this, but I'm very for sure that I think nature preserve is mainly for education use rather than for population um, things. But nature preserves will also take in hurt animals and rehabilitate them, put them into the wild. But I would have to do more research on that, and I want now that you have that question, I'm probably going to do a presentation on that one. Um, why is the hippo there? Probably zoo wants a hippo. I don't know. There's always reasons. Um, I think zoos originally were so that people could learn about exotic animals that they didn't even know existed. Definitely. Um, they were also used to preserve and restore animal populations. Preserve and restore animal populations, 100% correct. I would have to agree on that one. I don't know of any zoo. I mean, there's probably zoos that just, as in your first point about showing exotic animals, some zoos will actually take that for their advantage, and just because they're exotic, like sometimes exotic birds or mammals or fish, I don't know, it depends on the zoo or aquarium. Um, but some I know of some zoos, but I'm not going to say them because I don't want you guys to go to them. But I also don't remember their names. But there are zoos that will show exotic animals because they want those exotic animals to show. They're not they're probably not showing the exotic animals just to teach about them. They're probably just there because they're exotic and they just want them. Um, Thank you for admitting that you need to do research on a question that you don't know the answer to. I'm in high school. I don't even. I'm just doing this presentation just because I want to, but also because I want to teach you, and it helps me with presentation practices for being a zookeeper after college. Um, but I would also say that if you talk to anyone, even if they done it for if they've done their job for 45 like 50 years, like some of the old I'm not sorry old senior zookeepers, even they don't know things and they have to always search them up on their phone so like I've always heard people ask these questions about like um how high can they fly or the speed of the animal. I mean, usually if you're a senior zookeeper, you should know that because you get asked it so many times. But people are, I mean, everyone, not just zookeepers, should admit that they don't know and just do the research and get back to them. Not saying I know people that have will say absolutely random answers that they think are true, even though it's probably not. Um, animal conservation, yes. So the why. So as you guys said, saving animals, the IUCN and the AZA does something called the SSV, which is a species survival plan, and I will be doing a presentation on that sometime. Um, a lot of animals will not only take in animals for saving them and conservation, but most zoos, most of the animals by the animals, they will have like the IUCN scale and put where they are. Most of them are almost in, like pretty much either endangered, sometimes vulnerable. Just sometimes zoos will have them for breeding programs to help their population. Um, Lots of zoos and will take in hurt or injured exotic animals. Um, John Ball Zoo, Michigan, for example. I know this zoo really well, and so I'm giving examples of these. Um, but hurt or injured animals, like they have, um, I want to say, no, I don't think it's golden eagle. It's some sort of eagle or hawk that one of them is blind, one of them has a broken wing, but they will take in a lot of zoos will take in hurt or injured animals, especially like SeaWorld. They have this whole rescue um like I wouldn't organization or institution, I don't know, but they have like this so, SeaWorld has some a show for it, but yeah, loads of zoos will have taken hurt or injured animals, try to help them and put them back into the wild, or if they have a broken wing they can't be fixed, then they'll just keep them there, whatever will give them a better life. Rehabilitation is putting animals back into the wild if they're hurt. Teaching people about animals, that's always another reason why, but that I would say that's one of the not the first reasons, one of the main first reasons is hurting injured animals and saving the animals, but another one that's pretty high, but it's not as high as saving animals or taking in hurt or injured animals in rehabilitation. Um, because it's very important to teach about animals, but the zoos aren't there. I mean, zoos are built to teach people, but they're not. That's not. Well, it is one of their main ones, but it's not the most main one. But they will 100% always have like an education program where they have, if it's a good zoo and it's a big enough zoo that they can pay for it. Sorry. Um, but yeah, teaching people about animals that will always have like those education programs with ferrets, or there's always some sort of birds or snakes, animal demos, or like they'll go to like schools or some other um, form of event to teach people. Um, so this is just a wrap up of how to tell if a zoo is good or bad. How to tell if a zoo is bad. It's a bad habitat. The zookeepers aren't that good. Um, there's a, it's not that good of a reason. Like the why, uh, it's not a good. It's not acceptable for you just want to have animals and you call it a zoo. It's not a good reason for that. And there are zoos, mainly for profit zoos, that are more focused on the people enjoying it rather than the animal welfare. So now I will answer your questions, whatever you have. And I will answer your questions if you're not watching this live too. Um, we'll see. Do any zoos allow the animals to hunt for their food? I bet you there are zoos that will do that. I don't. I mean, I don't think it's that common. It's probably not going to be live food for cheap. I mean, sometimes they'll put like a piece of meat, and I've seen a zoo have like a piece of meat for a cheetah, and then um, like they'll have some sort of like pulling system where it goes certain speeds and it pulls it in to practice. So for like to practice for hunting, but probably or it really depends on the animal. For like meerkats or chimpanzees or you name it. It really depends on the animal and how they hunt. I mean, for chimpanzees, let's give an example of that. For them, hunting food is just using sticks to pluck out food, and that's an enrichment tool. Um, but I wouldn't say live animals like that. But sometimes they will put like fish or in a tank for them to eat, or I don't know, maybe live mice for a snake. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's that not that common, but they might do it sometimes if the animal's very good for an enrichment. Many times people will get exotic animals as pets, then they get tired of them and dump them into the environment. Yes, sadly that does happen. Um, like especially tigers. I've seen um, snakes that shouldn't be pets, but there are lots of laws now in countries that have those rules that you can't have exported animals or you can't have like an endangered animal. It just has to be like a cat or a dog or some sort of snake that they accept. All right, if you guys have any more questions, please text me on Facebook Messenger. Put them in the comments if you're not watching this live, or if you are on right now. I will get to them as soon as possible. Thank you everyone for watching this, and I will be posting another update on my Facebook page, and I will also be probably making an small update video on YouTube. Please subscribe if you want more of this content so you get notifications. And thank you everyone for watching this.